Welcome to this episode of Fantasy Baseball Picks and Bets presented by Prize Picks on the Mayo Media Network. I am Garion Thorne. The All-Star break is over. We had a full slate of baseball on Friday, and it is now time to break down Saturday's slate. Saturday, July 17th, we have a 10-game, 7 p.m. Eastern Time slate on DraftKings, one of the bigger Saturday night slates we have had all season, so let's break that down. But before we do, want to remind you guys that if you head on over to prizepicks.com and use the promo code MMN MLB, you can have your first deposit matched up to $100. And again, Prize Picks, not just baseball. They have every single sport you could possibly imagine. They have highlight on there. They have something for everybody. So you're going to find a fun game to play. Unfortunately, the lines for Saturday's slate have yet to be posted for baseball, probably because there's just too many other sports that they've got to work on. But check out my Twitter. Check out the Mayo Media Network Twitter, at Mayo Media Net. I will post some picks that I like for Saturday, either Friday night or Saturday morning, depending on when you are watching this. All right, let's get in to that DraftKings slate. Again, 10-game slate. Everything gets going at 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Little interesting how the pitching is working on this slate. You would assume coming out of the All-Star break with every team getting 4 days off, we would have seen a lot of aces on Friday. That's really not how it worked at all. We're getting more of the number one, number two options in teams' rotations on Saturday, and that is reflected in the top end of this slate. The top two pitchers, two of the better pitchers in baseball, one with a little bit of an asterisk, but still. We've got Brandon Woodruff at $10,200 and Garrett Cole at $10,000 flat. So one of the big decisions on this slate is going to be, do you go with Woodruff or do you go with Cole? Now, I think just off the bat, Woodruff is probably where most people are leaning, and the matchup data would tend to back up that statement. Cincinnati, not that they've been bad by any stretch of the imagination, but coming into Friday, across the last 30 days, Cincinnati has the 9th highest strikeout rate in baseball at 24.6%, and they have just a 96 WRC plus across that span of time. That is 21st in all of baseball. So a top third strikeout rate, a bottom third WRC plus, whereas Boston, in that same span of time, they have a 111 WRC plus. That is very, very good. And they have a bottom 10 strikeout rate. So not an ideal matchup for Cole. And you also have to start factoring in, and we'll get back to this in just a second, but the win expectancy with Cole at this point. Because of the COVID-19 outbreak the Yankees are currently going through, no Aaron Judge, no Gio Urshela. They're missing a couple key bullpen arms as well. The win expectancy just isn't high. The Yankees aren't scoring runs. They were shut out on Friday, and we could maybe see a similar situation on Saturday. So I think I'm leaning Woodruff here, again, for the matchup, for the fact that I just think the Brewers have a better chance of getting him the win, supporting him, and Woodruff's numbers on the road this season. I know Great American Ballpark is not exactly one of those fields where you're like, oh, wow, this is an amazing pitcher's park, but Woodruff on the road in 2021, 1.99 ERA across 58 and 2/3 innings pitched. Opponents are hitting 122 against Woodruff in 58 and 2/3 innings on the road. He has a 178 opponent WOBA on the road so far this season. He has been absolutely incredible. I think he's going to get the job done against the Reds on Saturday. So I like him at $10,200, but I wouldn't even necessarily say he's the best play on the slate. He's the most expensive play. He's a very good play. Might not be the best play. And, we're going to dovetail this right now. Nady Eovaldi comes in at $8,400. Eovaldi has pretty much done everything you could ask of him so far this season. He has been the constant in the Red Sox rotation, as, some members of that rotation have seen regression hit them very, very hard the last month and a half. Eovaldi has continued to be quite good. He's got a 2.60 FIP coming into Saturday's slate. That is the second lowest qualified mark in the American League. The only pitcher with a better mark is Carlos Rodon. So very good company right now for Eovaldi. His last start against the Yankees, not that long ago. It was late June. 7 2/3 innings pitched, just a single earned run, 27.1 DraftKings points in that game. And this was a full Yankees lineup. Everyone was playing. This was the A-plus version of the Yankees. And he dominated them. So I would have to believe, with the Yankees down Judge, down Gio, Gleyber Torres struggling, etc., etc., etc. I mean, the bottom third of the Yankees order on Friday was Chris Gittens. You had a AAA outfielder. You had Tim LaCastro. Like, these are not the New York Yankees. These are not, the Bronx Bombers. This is just a team right now that is struggling and has been ravaged by injuries and COVID. So I think at $8,400, Eovaldi's a pretty good play. Luis Castillo is another guy I think we have to talk about. It's tough to play Castillo and Woodruff in the same lineup. I know some people are opposed. You do sort of limit your ceiling in a build like that because both guys can't get the win, obviously. But it's a great matchup for Castillo, and he's been pitching incredibly as of late. His last 6 starts, a 1.63 ERA, a FIP just over 3, and he has only allowed 1 home run in his last 38 2/3 innings. And that was a huge issue for Castillo back in April and early May. So it's nice to see that he sort of rectified that a little bit. The strikeout numbers still aren't peak Luis Castillo. I mean, the ERA, again, sub 2. Strikeout rate is hovering around 25%. You'd like to see that at 30%, where Castillo, just where we know Castillo can be, but he's still been highly effective. And the Brewers aren't exactly a great offensive team, especially against right-handed pitching. They have just an 89 WRC plus for the season against righties. That is a lower third mark in all of baseball. This is also at $7,500, the cheapest Castillo has been since June 10th. So even though he is, without question, pitching his best baseball of the season coming into Saturday, he is kind of disrespected on this slate. Again, the cheapest he has been in 5 weeks. So I think Castillo, Eovaldi, Woodruff, those are probably my top 3 pitchers on this slate. I'm not all that big you can't use 2 guys in the same game analyst. I think you can. If they're the best options on the board, they're the best options on the board. And I think both those guys can definitely thrive in this contest. And we'll actually get back to that in our best bet segment. Before we do that, though, let's talk a little bit about offense and stacks. Top stack for me on this slate is the New York Mets. Now, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room. Again, we are taping this Friday night. We don't know definitively what happened with Francisco Lindor. Had to leave Friday's game against the Pirates. It appeared to be an oblique injury. That's terrible news. I know the Mets were calling it a side issue. His side was sore. That's usually code for oblique. That's death to a hitter. So we don't know what's going on with Lindor. Probably not going to be in the lineup on Saturday. So definitely something to think about, which is unfortunate because Lindor, his last 10 games prior to hurting himself against the Pirates, 1.048 OPS. He had finally been turning it on for the Mets, and now he might be seriously hurt. But, if he's in the lineup, play him because Will Crowe is bad. That's really all there is to say here. He is bad. Right-handed batters in particular have been a problem for Crowe so far this season. Righties are hitting .321 with a .412 WOBA. He's giving up 2.7 home runs per 9 to right-handed batters. Now, that doesn't exactly play into the Mets' hands. The Mets are a team really just stockpiled with left-handed bats and left-handed power. Most of their right-handed batters are actually switch hitters. So you're going to get a lot of left on right against Will Crowe. And though he has reverse splits, that's not something I would really worry about too much because in his last 8 starts overall against both lefties and righties, he's allowing 2.6 home runs per 9 and a .410 WOBA to both sides. So doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed. Will Crowe is more than willing to give up a couple extra base hits and some home runs. But the best right-handed batter on the Mets is your number one target on the Mets. Unfortunately, he's the most expensive, but I think he's going to be worth it. Pete Alonso, the home run king. He is $5,700. Brandon Nimmo, $4,800. Dom Smith, $4,400. There's a chance Jeff McNeil starts hitting second if Lindor is out of the lineup. That would make me more willing to stomach his $4,900 salary. I don't love it if he's hitting fifth necessarily. Not that he's a bad play, but he would be my fifth favorite Mets hitter if Lindor is in the lineup hitting second tomorrow. But again, I doubt that is going to happen. But either way, stack the top part of the Mets lineup against Will Crowe. That is probably going to pay major dividends on Saturday. Okay, before we get out of here, let's talk about some best bets on the DraftKings Sportsbook. I alluded to this earlier, but we are going with the under in Milwaukee and Cincinnati. That number is set at 8. It is -115 to the under. I'm hitting that hard. I think Woodruff and Castillo are pitching some of the best baseball of anyone in baseball right now. And I'm going to take advantage of that fact. Milwaukee has also hit the under in 7 of their last 8 games, while Cincinnati has actually hit the under in 9 of their last 10 games against NL Central opponents and in 10 of their last 12 games against teams that are above 500. So when they face good pitching, they don't hit and the games go under. So I think these are 2 good pitchers. I think all the trends are leaning to the under. I will go with the under. The second bet I like, Houston on the money line in this big series the Astros have against the White Sox, possibly an ALCS preview. This is a pretty good pitching matchup. It's not the best pitching matchup this series could give us, but it's a pretty good one. We've got Lucas Giolito going up against Jake Odorizzi. Generally speaking, like if this had been a year ago, this would be clear advantage White Sox with Lucas Giolito, but he's not been pitching amazingly since the crackdown. He hasn't been terrible, but he's clearly not the same guy he was last season. For whatever reason that happens to be, I don't know. But Giolito, since the beginning of June, 4.79 ERA. It's pretty underwhelming. 1.7 home runs per 9 to opponents. That's not an ace. That's a 4th or 5th starter. It's a major league starter, but it's a 4th or 5th starter. He's just not been pitching well as of late. Whereas Odorizzi kind of had to work his way in with the Astros, got hurt. That really set back everything. He's been building up his arm, finally at full strength. His last 5 starts, 1.04 ERA, a FIP just over 2, and opponents have just a 192 WOBA in that span of time. So I just think Odorizzi is pitching so much better than Giolito right now. I think Houston's offense, with Carlos Correa back off of the COVID IL, is clearly better than a banged-up White Sox squad. So the fact you're getting Houston at just -105 on the money line, I think that's a huge opportunity. I would jump all over that. I love the Astros on the money line. I also like the under between Milwaukee and Cincinnati, and that's going to do it for this episode of Fantasy Baseball Picks and Bets presented by Prize Picks. I want to remind you guys, check out at Garion Thorne or at Mayo Media Net for my Prize Picks selections on Saturday. I will post those as soon as possible. I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you next week.